Sky News can reveal Labor was warned about the costs associated with a possible 25% increase to aged care worker wages. Preliminary modelling suggests the government's pledge will cost taxpayers around $14 billion over the next 4 years. That's on top of an already mounting aged care bill. Olivia Casely has this exclusive report.
Putting the care back into aged care was at the heart of Anthony Albanese's election pitch.
A Labor government I lead will back a real pay rise for aged care workers. We'll support the workers' call for better pay at the Fair Work Commission, and a Labor government will fund the outcome of this case.
That was after the Aged Care Royal Commission found low wages were contributing to staff shortages. Unions, workers in the sector are demanding a 25% increase. Sky News can exclusively reveal Labor was warned such a wage lift would cost the taxpayer at least $14 billion over the next 4 years. That's according to preliminary government modelling. But economists are predicting an even bigger hit to the budget bottom line.
It won't be $5 billion in the first year if they phase in, but after a period of phasing in, it will be the $5 billion. So I think the estimate would sound very reasonable to me. I think that the aged care sector has to now really seriously consider more consumer contribution.
Government sources say their estimates are lower, but they are not revealing what a possible 25% wage increase could cost. Last week, the Fair Work Commission announced an interim pay increase of 15% for some workers in the sector. Aged Care Minister Annika Wells is describing it as a bittersweet outcome for the vital cleaning, laundry and catering workers not covered by the decision.
15% pay increase for aged care workers is very welcomed. We've obviously put aside money in contingency in anticipation of that happening, but we still have 2 steps left to go in the Fair Work decision. Next, we're going to look at sequencing and then finally any further pay increases.
$27 billion has been added to a so-called contingency fund in the budget to pay for measures including the Fair Work decision. But the government is refusing to say how much of this will cover a pay rise and for how much they've accounted for.
The provision didn't necessarily have to meet all the costs, but it was a responsible thing to do, was to make provision for some of what was known. It's a provision in the contingency reserve to help meet the costs of the aged care claim.
The unions say any wage increase must be delivered in its entirety and not in phases.
We must commit now. We have to attract and retain now. If we implement a wage increase over the course of some years, we are digging our grave.
Some of the big providers say they're teetering close to not being able to meet an adequate duty of care. They say the sector is already straining under an ageing population and facing severe staff shortages. They're warning more workers may leave in search of more lucrative jobs. Shadow Home Affairs Minister Anne Ruston backs a wage increase, but is calling for more transparency.
The sector needs to understand is the details around how it's going to be implemented and what it's going to cost. In the absence of having any transparency around it, Australian taxpayers would have no idea what this government's provisioned for.
It's another headache for the government as it deals with a growing budget deficit and competing costs such as the NDIS. The Fair Work Commission will meet within the next fortnight to discuss how much aged care workers will receive and when. An outcome the government is committed to funding. Olivia Casely, Sky News.